Ready? Three, two, one. Oh,
Ooh,
I don't really have it like I did in college.
yeah. Oh man.
Sorry for the audio here, or burps, but welcome back to
Woo!
Whiteout Weekly. And if you couldn't tell, we are shotgun a beer, and we are still celebrating that 35-21 Rose Bowl win over Utah. Although, as great as everything was in that game, we did kind of miss the best sunset in sports because it was like kind of overcast. So we did miss that, but everything else was amazing. Absolutely amazing. Hence why we're still shotgunning beers a couple weeks later. But that was
Yeah,
pretty
that game
much,
had everything.
yeah, that was, I mean, the national championship was sort of a letdown, but pretty much the end of a crazy bowl season. Both Big Ten teams are probably kicking themselves after losing those semifinal matches. I have an opinion on who I think should probably feel worse, but who do you think should feel worse after dropping their game?
I think for me, it's Ohio State. You look at how badly Georgia absolutely beat down the Horned Frogs in the national title game, and you're looking at yourselves thinking, I'm one Noah Ruggles shank away from having a chance to beat down TCU.
50 yards.
I think I like TCU. They were a great Cinderella story, but I think
Yeah.
if Ohio State makes that game, I think they also win that ball game. So I think for them, looking back on this season, especially looking at the CJ Stroud era where he didn't really come away with anything compared to previous Ohio State quarterback eras where you're at least winning a playoff game. But I think they're the ones kicking themselves at the end of the day. Obviously, Michigan is too, but I think Ohio State had the better chance there.
Yeah. And Stroud heading off to the NFL draft. I also agree. I think it was Ohio State. They were one field goal away from potentially trouncing TCU. But just for argument's sake, if you go by the transitive property, Michigan demolishes Ohio State. TCU gets demolished by uh, Georgia. So if Michigan faces Georgia, you never know. Could be a closer game.
Yeah.
Could be a closer game than what
I
we
think
got.
it works out that way.
Yeah, it's middle school math. Simple.
It's
A
math.
plus B
It's
equals
science.
C. You know. So to bowl season, couple bad beats on the bowl season. I think I bet what 85. I don't know how I got that number, but 85% of the bowls. My worst beat was the Kansas Jayhawks money line. I mean, they were out of it. Out of it. They were down 31-13 at halftime. Somehow come back, go into triple overtime, and that new rule where it goes into third overtime and you have to go for two every time. That screwed them. Lost 55-53. And the worst part about that beat was I took the money line and the spread was 2.5. Yeah. So it's just like a double whammy right there. But enough about those other teams. Let's talk some Penn State Nittany Lion football like we always do. We got two big announcements recently. Curtis Jacobs, Adisa Isaac running it back. One last dance, 1 year, joining Fashanu, Hunter Norzad, who's most likely taking over for Juice at center, and safety Keaton Ellis coming back. We're still waiting on Theo Johnson, but this is one of the first years that I am confident. I'm the most confident, besides Lockdown U and our stud running backs. I'm the most confident in our offensive and defensive lines in the trenches, which never happens for Penn State.
Mhm. especially when you look at coming into this last season where it was the biggest question mark. And then you knew you had the freshman talent coming in at running back, like you said, and to see the development that Phil Troutwine's been able to accomplish in such a short stint. And we're talking about, obviously, you got Olu Fashanu coming back, who's a potential top 10 pick, and his draft stock's going to continue to soar and stay at a high level. And basically everyone returning with the exception of Juice Scruggs on that O-line, and the infusion of freshman talent. When you talk about a Javen Williams, Alex Birchmeyer, Anthony Donka, talking about having a luxury of having this type of depth. Those guys are freshmen, and it's very, very rare that freshmen make a huge impact. But you saw what Drew Shelton did this year when he was asked to step up. So I don't think it's out of the question. And from what I've seen, what I've heard is that Javen and Birchmeyer are going to get a shot.
We'll
see whether
you froze there.
Gosh,
they're going to get a shot at starting.
They're going to get a shot at starting at
at guard and right tackle.
They said they're going to start them at tackle, and then depending on how things play out, they may move one of them inside to guard.
Okay.
I think the consensus is that one or both of them will move inside, but they said you get the time to be able to do so. They're early enrollees. You got spring ball, you got fall camp to see what they can do at the tackle spot, and then they can maneuver from there based on what they see and how they fit in.
Yeah, so Birchmeyer, number 1 ranked player in Virginia. Same with Javen Williams, number 1 ranked player in Pennsylvania. And then those two states, the top 10 players in Virginia and Pennsylvania, Penn State's got 6 of the top 10 players in the 2023 class. So absolutely balling in recruiting thanks to James Franklin. And then we had some coaching staff news, actually. Running back coach Jawan Sider elevated to the assistant head coaching spot. And wide receiver coach Taylor Stubblefield was fired, which was a little mysterious because, we've had some sick wide receivers, so you have to question if it was the talent or possibly his lack of development that caused that firing, because that kind of seemed out of nowhere.
Yeah, it definitely came in out of left field, and just the timing of when the news dropped. We'll get into the transfer portal piece, but after he added a huge piece at wide receiver last night, just moments later, the announcement of the firing, and not any type of wording where it seems like it was mutual. James Franklin just kind of bluntly saying he's been relieved of his duties. So mentioned we've had some great talent come through, but when you look over the course of the last year, not a ton of development. I think there's a lot of unproven guys still on this roster as we head into the next season, hence why they're looking at the portal pretty heavily at the wide receiver spot, and they were right out the gate. But very, very interesting. And it just, when you look at the past 2 position groups that Franklin's really targeted, you have a Phil Troutwine who's doing big things now with the O-line. You have Mike Yursich at O coordinator. When he's made a move over the last couple of years, he had that next guy in line targeted and lined up and ready to go. So my gut feeling is that this position, that the wide receivers coach position, is not going to stay open too long here. I think you'll hear something in the next couple of days.
What's Bobby Engram up to? Is he coaching?
I think he's getting a phone call.
He should be getting a phone call.
I think he's getting a phone call. Yeah.
Hands for days. So moving along to the transfer portal, as we just mentioned, transfer portal in college football is now turning into the NBA offseason, where it's like the Blake Griffin thing. Guys are just holding people hostage and mansions and making them transfer to their school, basically. But we got some significant arrivals and some departures as well. Current players and then early commits too. So, do you want to start us off with one of my favorite names that I've heard in college football? Uh, my favorite one was, I forget the team he plays for, but his name was Pigpen, actual name. But Storm Duck, what a name! Cornerback, transferred from North Carolina, 46 tackles, tackle for loss, 3 picks, 9 pass deflections, and a forced fumble in 12 games last season. What else can you tell us about Storm Duck?
Yeah, first team all name in college football. He's probably in there
By
with
far.
Kool-Aid McKinstry
Mm-hmm.
and DeColdest Crawford. So
Mm-hmm.
he's right along with the greats. But
It's
has had a
Pigpen. Pigpen was his name. Pigpen.
in Pigpen. Can't forget Pigpen. Injury-ridden career thus far. Penn State actually recruited him in the 2019 cycle. Former 3-star prospect, but saw a lot of game action last year and was finally healthy. Appeared in 12 games, like you mentioned, 46 tackles, so was extremely productive. And it's a risk reward type deal where you
Mm-hmm.
don't want him to be occupying a scholarship spot if he's not going to be able to get on the field. So I think Penn State staff probably feels really confident when you look through the physicals and making sure that he's in game shape and ready to go and free of those nagging injuries. But could be a huge piece of this secondary when you look at the departure of Joey Porter Jr. You're talking about Penn State's first round pick at the cornerback position in quite some time, or possibly ever. You got the resurgence of Kalen King, who's more than likely going to take over cornerback one of Lockdown U. You got
Definitely.
Johnny Dixon coming back, so I think adding depth to that room certainly does not hurt. And I think Storm Duck, along with that great name, I think he certainly provides that.
Yeah, before we go into the rest of the portal gets our secondary. So he's most likely going to start on the outside, you would say, across from Kalen.
Yeah, I think you see a mix
Him
of
and Johnny
him.
will probably battle for that.
I think him and Dixon could potentially, and then when you look
Okay.
at the nickel spot, you got Daquan Hardy,
Yeah.
who's done a lot for this team. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think you got to wait and see how spring ball and fall camp play out. But I think he's talent wise, he's for sure got an opportunity to play on that opposite side.
And then at safety, Jalen Reed, Keaton Ellis coming back, Zachy Wheatley. So there could be a potential for one of those guys, if they're in a backup role, to potentially be like a safety cornerback hybrid,
Mm-hmm.
kind of play both.
Absolutely.
And even nickelback,
Yeah.
you know, if we don't have a backup to Daquan and he's gassed, throw someone in the nickelback spot.
Yep.
Not a lot of big names in the portal coming Penn State's way. Besides some wide receivers earlier in the year. But you would never guess that Penn State would be a portal destination given the weather, the amazing Penn State weather up there in State College, you know. You would never think that some of these highly touted high school recruits would choose Penn State after coming from UNC, Florida State, Georgia, like these kind of schools.
Yeah, for sure. Not a lot of flash, but did get some flash last night. So recording this on Monday, and then Sunday evening, Dante Cephas announced his commitment to Penn State, who was a
That was big.
highly sought after
Yeah.
portal wide receiver. 24th ranked portal target according to 24/7 Sports. Talking about a guy who's caught almost 2,000 or over 130 catches, almost 2,000 receiving yards in 2 years at Kent State. Was definitely highly sought after by this Penn State program and has the potential to be a wide receiver one heading into next year for first year quarterback Drew Aller. So that's huge get for this program.
Definitely. Yeah. I'm going to have to check the tape on that because as we were talking about the wide receiver coach, it seems like we have a lot of young talent, but no one's really emerged as, you know, that go-to wide receiver one, which I think might have been part of the reason why he was let go. But we do have some absolute studs coming in. One name that I do want to mention, who is a 4-star commit, according to 47 Sports. He decommitted from UNC, just like Storm Duck. Linebacker Kavion Keys from Virginia joins the other Virginia stud linebacker, Tony Rojas. And I think he's going to be a huge asset to this future linebacking core. I mean, we already got Curtis, Abdul, Kobe King, and now Kavion Keys and Tony Rojas. So I think linebacker U is about to have a humongous revival. Not to mention edge rusher Mason Robinson, decommitted from Northwestern, went to McDonough High School in Maryland. 10th ranked overall player in Maryland, 6'4", 230, 3-star commit, according to 247 Sports.
Yeah, I think from a recruiting standpoint, it just goes to show the relationship. You know, you're always going to hear how good of a recruiter Franklin is, but also the rest of the staff and how they're able to stay in tune and connected with these guys even after they commit somewhere. So you look at Kavion Keys committed UNC. I already mentioned Storm Duck, who was at UNC, but Penn State had previously recruited Mason Robinson. So to be able to maintain that relationship, so when you're going after these guys, whether in the middle of a cycle or in the portal, you already have that foundation built. So it's not necessarily like they're starting from scratch. So it's just really a masterful job, I think, from the recruiting standpoint, from this staff to be able to go out and get these high profile guys.
That's a phenomenal point of them. Yeah, their consistency with, even if they go to a different school, staying with them, keeping up with their success, whatever's going on with them. And then just to go on the depth of his recruiting, we got Cameron Wallace, 6'1", 180, 3-star commit, labeled athlete from Mount Vernon, Georgia, 73rd ranked player in Georgia. So that's the kind of scope that we're working with James Franklin as our head coach. And before we head to our next section, we just want to give a big thank you to all of our fans and supporters who voted on the WOW Awards.
Wow.
It started out as just kind of a joke. Owen Wilson, WOW, sponsoring the acronym of Whiteout Weekly. And it turned out to be awesome. It was so much fun putting those plays together, hearing your guys' opinions. So we're going to continue that with our own WOW Awards, not play-based, kind of more individual award-based. For us two, honorable mention for each category. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 awards to give out. And that will be coming up next.
Wow. 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 Yeah.
And it is time for the first annual WOW Awards given by the hosts of Whiteout Weekly. Probably should have dressed up more for this occasion. I'm wearing a backwards hat and Pit Viper sunglasses, but Tux is not packed from Philly right now, so we'll have to deal with it. We're not going to give out an award first. First, we're going to give some appreciation to some seniors / draft entries that we are surely going to miss, including the man that changed, I think, an entire fan base's mind with his play over the past 4 or 5 games. And that is Captain Sean Clifford.
Yeah, Sean Cliff, man, seems like it's been 10, 12 years in the making, but I know I've been a heavy critic. I know I've been a heavy critic, but his play those last couple games, was really something to watch. And when you think about Penn State record books and where he stands, Penn State's all-time leader in passing yards, wins, starts, the whole 9 yards. It was pretty surreal to see. I think it was played very nicely, I'll say, by Franklin in that Rose Bowl game where he was able to call the timeout,
Yeah.
have Cliff exit, be greeted by his brother Liam, as he leaves the field, and obviously you see the emotion that was kind of overcoming him, and it was a really cool moment, for me. I think, like you mentioned, a lot of Penn State fans are, thankful to be moving into the Aller era. But I think for Cliff, he's a guy. I sound like Sean, Chris Collinsworth. Here's a guy. I think
Here's a guy.
he'll find a spot somewhere. I know he was participating in the Hula Bowl. I think it was this past weekend. It was kind of like the Senior Bowl where you can just kind of get some drill work in front of NFL scouts. I think he'll win a lot of teams over with the interviews, and I kind of put him in that same bucket. Doesn't have the accolades that Stetson Bennett has, but kind of in that same knack where he doesn't stack up to an NFL quarterback, but he just has those intangibles and that grit. Where even he'll find a clipboard job somewhere in this league.
Yeah.
Or he'll bounce around. All the work that he's done with NIL. He's going to be a successful dude. But hats off to him. I'm happy to be entering the Aller era, but it goes without saying, what he brought to the program over the last 4 or 5 years, despite all the criticism that he received. A lot of it, was well deserved. But I think he combated it very well and didn't let it get to him. So hats off to Mr. Sean heading off to his next adventure.
Yeah, and great call with, I think I'm exactly on point with you with his NFL future.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the one main argument or disagreement that we've had on the show was about Clifford, where I forget what game it was. He played terribly. And it was what's going on here? We asked if we could take an anonymous poll, what would the players in the locker room say about putting Aller in over Clifford during the middle of the season? And we mentioned the fact that we don't know what's going on in that locker room. We don't know the presence that Clifford brings. And I think that little fact shined through
Mm-hmm.
during the end of the season. I think he was the guy that everyone in the locker room looked up to, fought for. When shit got tough, he was the one that everyone rallied around and was like, guys, we're good. We got this. We're going. Even though he wasn't the best quarterback, he got the boys going. And that's in college football. Sometimes that's all you can ask for. All you can ask for. Some more senior appreciation. Bryce Effner. He was the right tackle on the Purdue legendary drive. I'm calling it legendary because if we don't score that touchdown, I don't get this t-shirt. we don't win the Rose Bowl. None of that happens.
You're not wearing those Vipers.
Yeah, not wearing the Vipers. Shout out to Bryce Effner. Phenomenal job as a
all-time nickname too. All-time nickname, the Slab.
Yeah, I love that, dude. I love that.
Total football god nickname. But Bryce, he called it quits from football in general, which is an admirable thing to do. He's another guy, all these Penn State guys, they get recruited in obviously because they're football talent, but the way that Franklin recruits is he's looking for great overall guys. Guys are going to be successful in life as well. So Bryce is one of those guys. Didn't necessarily excel in one spot. I think in one of his exit interviews referred to himself as a Swiss Army knife, which is basically what he was.
Yeah.
He played all spots of the offensive line, didn't really have a
all around. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Right? Filled in where needed, extra blocking tight end, especially on that last Purdue drive. Just a really big depth piece that this offensive line needed as they were figuring a lot of things out. As a Caden Wallace struggled over numerous games, he was able to step in and fill that void and step up. So Not a stat sheet stuffer or someone that's going to blow you away, but just a glue guy on that offensive line unit that needed to take a huge step this year, and he was definitely a part of that.
That I'm running this down. That needs to be an award next year. Glue guy / Mr. All Around.
Yeah.
I mean, continuing with just an all-time football guy, Nick Tarburton.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to him, sending him off, winner of our WOW award for the John Madden Boom Hit of the Year award on God bless his soul. Oh, I'm like on Tuttle, Indiana quarterback. God bless that man's soul. But going back to your point to Effner and just people, their Penn State players being successful outside of football, I think we have to shout out Justin King on that too, with everything that he does with the program. Not only him, but just multiple companies and programs that help college athletes out, not only succeed potentially going pro, but just in life in general. Because you get that scholarship, you're getting a tremendous opportunity going to college. You got a lot to take advantage of. So moving on after Nick Tarburton, a couple of draft entries, wide receivers, Parker Washington and Mitchell Tinsley. We're going to go more in depth on them later because, spoiler, they're going to win some awards. Same with tight end Brenton Strange. He won the Bouncer of the Year award for that Auburn block where he just pancaked the dude on Singleton's 60-yard run. But that was just trying to find the block of the, like, we got a lot of comments being like, how'd you leave out this one? How'd you leave out that one? It's like, I had to look at over 1,000 running plays, man. Like, I'm sorry, it was tough to pick out because you could have put two Strange pancakes, a Tyler Warren pancake, and then, so it was tough. It was very tough.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about Brent Strange later. P.J. Mustipher. One of the less talked about Penn State players, but one of my all-time favorites, and the origin for my origin story for Iowa being my arch rival, arch villain. Never will like them because of that. I mean, it's not even the Iowa fan base. It's really the one fan and the coach that were mocking his injury when he tore his Achilles. Dude. Achilles, or was it a ligament in his knee?
I think it was a ligament. I don't think it was the Achilles. I think it was something with the knee, knee or lower leg.
Either way, surgery required. Like it was, and then they're just mocking him, thinking that forever origin story of a villain. And then lastly, Jair Brown, aka Tig. Definitely going to talk more about him, but he's weirdly, I was looking at Pro Football Focus's safety rankings. He's 10th.
No, 10th at
on their
safety
big board.
on their
So
big board.
whichever team gets him is going to get an absolute steal at safety. So going off that, the first WOW Award, unofficially sponsored by Owen Wilson.
Wow.
Is the Good Luck in Hike School, Billy, from Billy Madison.
Gee, I can't wait till I go to hike school.
Hike School spelled Hikes, Hikes School. That goes to the best seniors as farewell draft entry. Davey, who you got for that one?
For me, I'm going with the one that's probably going to be first off the board come April. Joey Porter Jr.
Wow.
Boom.
I already mentioned he's likely going to be the first ever Penn State defensive back to go in round one. Very excited to see what his landing spot may be. He's just going to bring a ton of length, ton of talent to any defensive back room in the NFL. So no pressure, Joey. Going to be like I said, first round pick out of Penn State at that position group. But he's going to be a cornerback one for years and years to come. So good luck in high school, Joey Porter Jr.
Yeah, and I some mock drafts. I saw the Steelers possibly getting him, Eagles possibly getting him, so he must stay in Pennsylvania. But I've been doing a little bit of tape work for just preparing for the draft, and I've watched Keeley, Cam Smith, and Joey Porter Jr. And I have to say, I think Joey Porter Jr. I am biased, but watching his game against Marvin Harrison and the Purdue game where he was targeted 14 times, I think he's the second best quarterback in the draft. I think Keeley's going to go before him, but I honestly think he's 6'2", 220, Keeley Ringo from Georgia. I think he's going to turn into a safety. So I think out of this class, bold prediction right now, JPJ is going to be the best corner in the future. So that's a great pick. I'm going to go with a guy who was the anchor of this offensive line for 2 seasons straight, playing center pretty much all of last season. The year before that, he kind of switched from center to left guard to right guard, playing interior, which is, we've talked about, so crucial for an offensive lineman to be able to go in between those 3 positions. It's Juice Scruggs.
Wow.
He had team high 480 pass pro snaps, 1 sack allowed. He was one of 7 Big Ten offensive linemen that had 450 or more pass block snaps and 1 or less sacks allowed. And I could have bumped that up to like 550 and made it 1 of 5, but not splitting hairs here. Tremendous season from Scruggs. And over the past 2 seasons, over 1,000 snaps and pass protection, 3 sacks allowed. So again, whoever gets that kid in the draft is going to get a starting center for the next decade at least. So good luck in high school, Juice Scruggs. And obviously, we talked about him, but the honorable mention, good luck in high school, and way down the line, good luck as a future, possibly NFL coach, Sean Clifford.
That's right.
The next award, we had a similar one, split them up between interception and forced fumble/fumble recovery. But this one is going to be the Jackin Hagar Faceless Man Award, which, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're not, the Faceless Men are a group of assassins who take the face of other people to infiltrate secret spots to kill people, essentially. So this is going to go to the most underrated player on Penn State. And when I first thought of the Faceless Men, it was Kalen King.
Wow.
That was the first guy I thought of, just because the secondary is just full of lengthy ball hawking, interception, missile seeking players. So King playing opposite of JPJ, who every team's concept or scheme every game was to avoid him. So he was getting targeted a ton, and he held his side of the field down. 59 targets, 11th most in the Big Ten, 18 pass breakups, led the Big Ten, a 90.6 coverage rate according to PFF, second highest cornerback grade in the Big Ten, behind Devin Witherspoon. Haven't watched the tape on him yet, but he's a stud. And then the Rose Bowl. I mean, the dude's stats in the Rose Bowl are like, honestly, video game numbers. 10 times targeted, Gave up 3 catches for 30 yards, had that crazy diving pick.
Mm-hmm.
No penalties in coverage. 0.0 passer rating when targeted. That's possible. I 3 for 30, but then the interception. So it's 30% accuracy and an interception. Yeah. 0 later. So that is my Jack and Hagar Faceless Man of the Year and future CB1.
For me, didn't kill anyone this year, but Hunter Norzak, for me,
Wow.
when you think of Faceless Man, typically I lean into the
He
offensive.
laid some people out though.
That's right. Typically lean to the offensive line. Usually if you're not hearing their name, then they're doing pretty well for you. But Hunter Norzad, Ivy League experiment round 2 in the transfer portal last year. Team had Eric Wilson that came in from Harvard. Didn't quite pan out to I think what the staff was expecting, but Hunter Norzad from Cornell came in from day one and really added depth to this O-line and then was able to take over some key spots when you talk about when Landon Tengwall goes down at left guard and he's able to fill in there, taking snaps at backup center, where now you're talking about where you're losing a guy like Juice Scruggs, like you mentioned, but he's going to be able to fill in pretty seamlessly and be your starting center heading into next year for first-year quarterback Drew Aller. So, I think what he was able to accomplish in 1 year and making the jump from Ivy League to Big Ten play is a huge, huge leap. And he made it seem pretty seamless. Again, didn't hear his name a lot this year, but he did a lot for that offensive line and for that depth and is going to continue to do so heading into next year, into 2023.
No, and I think that's what you said was perfect. That, like, not hearing his name, that's the definition of a faceless man. You're not gonna hear his name all game, but he's doing his job and getting it done. And the honorable mention for that award, kind of going along the same lines of you don't hear his name often, but he's doing his job, which is eating double teams and allowing other pass rushers to get to the quarterback or to the running back. That is P.J. Mustipher. Gonna go down as one of my all-time favorite Nittany Lions. The next award, New Kid on the Block. The best freshman / newcomer. So Nick Singleton, clearly could win this award for both of us, but he won the Big Ten Freshman of the Year, which is, a little more prestigious than winning a WOW award, unofficially sponsored by Owen Wilson. So besides Singleton, who you going with, Davey?
For me, it's got to be the man occupying that edge spot, the man who keeps the transfer portal very interesting. Didn't enter until very late in the cycle. Another individual that was targeted early on in his recruitment before deciding to go to Maryland, before coming back to Happy Valley, but Mr. Chop Robinson.
Wow. I love that.
I know this. Everyone in the fan base was excited once he made that commitment to move from Maryland and come to Penn State, but he was everything and more that you expected to get out of him from a former, 4 and in some sites 5-star prospect. When you look at PFF, one of the highest graded, if not the highest graded Power 5 pass rusher over the course of the season. And to think of, the eligibility that he still has left and what the mark that he was able to make this year and coming back next year and occupying that DN spot, look at the beginning of the season, he wasn't even starting. He was coming in relief, for a Nick Tarberdon and Adisa Isaac. So to give him a full run of spring ball, to give him a full run of winter workout, spring ball, fall camp, and to think what he can do next year is scary talk. But for me, I think Chop was a huge impact, and we saw what AK was able to do for this team out of the portal 2 years ago, and I think Chop did that and then some this past season.
Yeah, back to back, AK, Chop, and then Chop next year, like dominating edge rushers. coming through the portal. But let's talk about our edge, little tangent, our edge rushers for a second. We got Chop, Adisa, Dennis Sutton, Amin Vanover, all rotating in that defensive line unit. And then we got Jameel Lyons, 4-star, 6'4", 255-pound edge from Roman Catholic in Philly. Second-ranked player in PA. I mentioned that we had 6 of the top 10 players in Pennsylvania. Then another edge rusher coming in, Tamir Robinson, 4-star, 6'4", 255-pound edge from Pittsburgh. He's the 4th-ranked player in PA. So again, one of the first seasons that we're going into that I'm so confident in both of the offensive and defensive lines. But my new kid on the block is going to go to Nick Singleton's partner in crime. He doesn't win the Big Ten Freshman of the Year, but he wins the new kid on the block WOW Award, which is, come on, that's just as good.
Wow.
So Katron regular season finished with 830 rushing yards. That was 10th in the Big Ten as a backup, essentially. 5.3 yards per carry. That was 9th in the Big Ten. 27 runs over 10 yards. 4th most in the Big Ten. 8 of his 12 games, he had 70 or more rushing yards. So not only do we have Nick Singleton, who's a top 3 back, we have Fat Man who lost so much weight, changed his running style, his vision mixed with that desire to just see contact first and just take on that defender is awesome to see paired with Nick Singleton. Top 10 back, top 3 back in the Big Ten for the near future. And then we did mention him in the edge rushers, but denied Dennis Sutton. Honorable mention, I think, for the best freshman newcomer. You agree with that one? DDS.
Yeah, another key cog from that McDonough high school pipeline. Showed a lot of flash this year and a lot of relief duty. So excited to see, again, another guy where, when you put him through another winter workout, spring ball, fall camp, what he's going to be able to do as a sophomore is very, very scary.
Our last 3, the most important ones. The Iron Lion Most Improved Player of the Year. Davey, who is your pick?
For me, so member of the Faceless men in the secondary. Another transfer portal get from last season, coming over from South Carolina, going with Mr. Johnny Dixon.
Yeah, I love that pick.
Wow.
The jump between last year and this was substantial. Saw a lot more game action this year and was trusted out there on Dixon Island in a lot more key spots on a lot of crucial moments of this season. I think the improvement was vast, and excited to see what he can do with another year under his belt coming back next year to help lead this group. And just another win in the transfer portal that's going to continue to help this program as the transfer portal becomes more and more a part of college football. They're going to be able to look to someone like Johnny Dixon, who played for an SEC school, South Carolina, didn't quite pan out, but was able to come to Penn State and really kind of turn his career around and improve his draft stock. And he's going to be another selling point on the recruiting trail when you're looking at a transfer target. Hey, look at what Johnny Dixon was able to do here in 2 years' time. So a win for this staff, a huge development piece, and really a big improvement this year when you talk about last year to this for Mr. Dixon.
Yeah, look what the players have done when they come here, and look at the Penn State weather. It's amazing. Both.
That's right.
Beautiful. But so I think Herbstreit did the Rose Bowl, right? I think he mentioned, he was like, with JPJ out and Kalen King, Manny, it was after Kalen King's interception. Like, Johnny Dixon's going to be thrown out a lot. Guess what? Thrown out 3 times. no catches allowed, 2 pass breakups, did have 1 penalty in coverage, a 39.6 NFL passer rating when thrown at, which is the same thing as just throwing the ball into the dirt every time you drop back to pass. And PFF graded him with a 72.1 coverage grade, which was the 3rd highest on the team. So him and Kalen King locking down the outsides are going to be awesome next year. For my most improved, I'm going with the guy we talked about already, coming back for next season, Adisa Isaac, across some chop.
Wow, you're so dominant.
2020, he had 13 tackles, 1.5 sacks. Unfortunate Achilles tear training for his sophomore year. And then this year just comes back with a vengeance. 28 total tackles, 15 of those were solo. He had 4 sacks, which was, I think, tied for 4th on the team. And was just a lot of his pressures won't go down the stat books, but they caused a lot of not only turnovers, but just bad plays in general for the opposing team. He was just a complete disruptor this year. And coming off that Achilles tear, just sky's the limit for that kid next year. I'm so glad he's coming back. Definitely need him. And I think he's going to be one of the most talked about edge rushers in the Big Ten next season. And then our honorable mention, for most improved Iron Lion is another defensive lineman, Hakeem Beamon, who I'm also really pumped about for next season.
Yeah, going to be a huge piece to fill in for when you talk about the loss of a PJ Mustipher. So, he's going to be part of that depth on the inside that needs to fill that void. But a big year for Mr. Beamon.
And the last two, the Manny Diaz Demon Defensive Player of the Year Award. Our honorable mention is Curtis Jacobs, who might win the award next year. But Davey, go ahead and give us your pick first.
So for me, this was a guy that for me flashed from that week 1 matchup against Purdue and then really just stormed onto the scene and everyone just fell in love with him. But the new number 11 in LBU, Mr. Abdul Carter.
Wow.
AKA Mr. Incredible.
Wow.
Wow. Congratulations.
Wow. 56 tackles on the year. 36 of them solo, 6.5 sacks. Another guy mentioned Chop where he wasn't necessarily starting each game. So, they had some games where he was the official starter alongside Curtis Jacobs. So excited to see a lot more of that next year where it's him, and Jacobs. But really just bursted onto the scene and mentioned week 1 against Purdue where his first career hit, he's ejected for targeting.
Yeah.
And talk about a kid who during his recruitment, James Franklin mentioned where he walked into his living room, there's just a bench press in his Philadelphia home at his parents' house. So definitely has that
commercial reps, dude. Every time there's commercials,
yeah.
Just get some reps in, sit-ups, push-ups.
So a guy who's just built, for this stage, and talk about just a freshman in the flash that he showed. So can't even imagine what his career is what we're going to be talking about in 2 more years time, when we're looking at a potential 1st round draft prospect. Cause to me, he's a surefire NFL 1st rounder, in 2 more years time. But so thinking about having him here on campus for at least 2 more years is a scary thing for all Big Ten opponents. So I think for me, he is the definition of a Manny Diaz demon.
Yes.
The way he is just a fucking heat-seeking missile when he gets after the quarterback.
Yeah, like the way heat-seeking missile is the way to put it. Like the way he won the sack lunch award for sack of the year. The way he can blitz from either A gap and just blow by the center, before the ball, like by the time the quarterback's getting the snap and shotgun, Abdul's there, like ready to make you scramble one way or the other. And I think it was Michigan State. Even when they put a running back in there to try to chip the blitzer, Bert. I always mess up this guy's name. Berger, the Michigan State running back.
Galen Berger, yeah.
Bergeron was the Bruins center for like
Bruins center.
Yeah. So even when he goes to chip, it's just like one boom, gone. Got the angle at Peyton Thorne, and Peyton Thorne even was like, "I'm not even gonna run. I'm just falling down. You're just gonna touch me and sack me here." So tremendous pick. Sky's the limit for that kid, and I mean, the way he can go sideline to sideline, blitz, cover, it's all there. Just got to keep going, 1-0 mentality every day for that kid. But I'm going to go with someone who I mentioned that is way too low on draft boards. Way too low on draft boards. He had huge shoes to fill in terms of Jaquan Brisker, who is currently crushing it in the NFL. But my Manny Diaz Demon Defensive Player of the Year is going to Jair Brown.
Wow, welcome to the 700 Club, kid.
I mean, Brisker is up there too, but he is one of the highest football IQs and ball hawking skills as a defensive back that I've seen come through Penn State in a long time. Led the team with 74 tackles this year. 56 of them were solo, or he was literally everywhere on the field. He had 27 defensive stops, which PFF defines as a tackle that results in a quote-unquote failure for the offense. That was second on the team. Going by more traditional stats, 7 tackles for loss. That was 5th on the team. 4.5 sacks, 3rd on the team. So that's just straight pressure and tackling. 4 interceptions, most on the team. And if you look at the 4 interceptions he had this year, it's just all high IQ, ability to read a quarterback's eyes, route concepts, and just break on a ball when he knows exactly when it's going to get thrown. Also had 2 forced fumbles, first, and a fumble recovery. So again, I don't know how he's ranked so low. But whatever team drafts him in April is going to get a stud and possibly a starter for at least 8 years. And on to our last award. We're going to title this the Michael Robinson Offensive Player of the Year Award. We'll start with the honorable mentions just because there's so many different players that could have fit this slot, from, Scruggs anchoring the offensive line to Clifford being the leader that he was. But the 2 honorable mentions are going to go to Parker Washington, Mitchell Tinsley.
Wow, a little heart and everything.
Washington finishes 12th all time in Penn State history in receiving yards with 1,920, past Joe Jurevicius, who's 13th, who Joe Jurevicius, any Eagles fan knows, hate him.
Yeah.
Had so many ridiculous touchdown catches against the Eagles, blew my mind. And I don't know why Penn State somehow gets drafted by every team that the Eagles have a rivalry with. It's getting kind of annoying. But regardless,
the NFC East. NFC East loves Penn State.
Yeah. He's 12th all time Penn State career receiving yards. Congratulations to him. And I think the most impressive stat from him, he didn't see that many targets, played in 10 games, but he had a 69.7% catch rate, which was 7th in the Big Ten. So we put out a tweet about Tinsley and Parker Washington, but they're both just have insane hands and the ability to make people miss after the catch. Parker Washington tied for 3rd in the Big Ten with 15 missed tackles, 4th forced. Tinsley, 9th, 8 in missed tackles forced. Against man coverage, Tinsley was 6th with a 71.4% contested catch rate. So just sure-handed guy. Washington tied for 3rd, 75% contested catch rate. And then yak yards, 6.4 yak per reception for Parker Washington, 8th in the Big Ten. And then Tinsley, anytime he caught the ball, it was going for 6 or going for a big gain. He had 16.7 yards per reception, which was 4th in the Big Ten. And then one of the craziest stats I found, 2 Big Ten schools had players with 40 or more receptions and less than 4 drops. You would think Ohio State or Michigan would be one of them. Nope. Purdue with Charlie Jones, TJ Sheffield,
Chuck Sizzle,
and Payne Durham, and Penn State with Washington and Tinsley. So those are the honorable mentions for the Michael Robinson Offensive Player of the Year. Dave, who are you giving this prestigious award to?
It seems like the freshmen or the transfer portal guys are taking these awards over, but I gotta go with the freshman sensation at tailback.
Oh,
sorry, not Katron Allen, but Mr. Nick Singleton.
Wow, you're so dominant.
Who, I think us, along with Penn State fans everywhere, had the hope that he would be special, but the year that he had, I don't know that we could have chalked it up, especially with the offensive line concerns. But when you go back and look at the stats, 156 carries, just over 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns, 6.8 yards per carry, and 6 games this year where he touched the ball less than 10 times and still finish with those types of numbers. So not a lot of tread on those tires.
That is so
not
absurd.
A lot of tread needed for him to make an impact on the game. I think if I had one area of critique heading into next year, I'd love to see him get a little bit more involved with the passing game, the screen game. When you think about how Saquon was able to turn a little swing route or a quick screen into a huge gain, he's got that type of game breaking speed and ability, but couldn't really have asked for more. You look at how he finished up the year in the Rose Bowl: 7 carries, 120 yards, 2 touchdowns, including that electric 87-yard run. So without a doubt, for me, it's got to be Mr. Nick Singleton.
Love that. I'm gonna go with another guy who is it's probably because of my Penn State bias, but he's not up there on the tight end boards. I mean, there's a lot of talented tight ends this year, but Brenton Strange,
wow,
not only for what he did in the passing game, 84.2% catch rate, 5th among all Power 5 tight ends. He had a 7.3 yak average, 19th in all Power 5 Big Tens. And then versus man coverage, dominant. You can't stop him in man coverage. Throw the ball anywhere. Look at the Illinois catch. Throw it anywhere. He literally reached around that linebacker, caught the ball. 90.9 catch rate against man coverage. 1st among all Power 5 tight ends. And a 100% contested catch rate. 1st among all Power 5 tight ends. He was 4 for 4 there. But it's not only that, like I said, it's his ability to run block. There's countless clips of him out there just pancaking defensive linemen or linebackers into the dirt. And he had 0 sacks / pressures attributed against him, which was tied for 1st among all Power 5 tight ends. And we talked briefly about Dawkins coming in at left tackle for Olu and the right tackle, just problems in general. He was a huge part of that in those 12 formation sets, helping out those left tackles with edge rushers. and blocking. So I think he had a lot of unsung plays that didn't get mentioned at all. But then he also had a lot of, highlight plays where he's doing somersaults into the end zone and catching balls behind people's backs. So Brenton Strange, my Michael Robinson offensive player of the year. And again, I think someone's going to get an absolute steal at tight end with him.
Love it.
But that will do it for the first annual WOW Awards. We want to thank you all again for voting and engaging with us on social media. We absolutely love it. Penn State football community is one of the best in all of the nation. We love to do this, and we're going to continue doing it all off season with different transfer portal people coming in, different recruits, maybe talk more about the 2024 class. We got a lot of episodes on deck, a lot of stuff coming to you guys. But once again, thank you so much for listening to us talk Penn State football, and we will see you in a bit.
Less than 3 months till the Blue-White game, baby.
3
Another
months. Okay, let's go. We got something on our calendar. See you guys then.
Let's go. Thanks, guys.